Chapter 4. The Snow Woman. He takes a chair in front of an old coffee shop, smoking his cigar, drinking his dark roasted coffee. The sky was turquoise, the table was made of iron, now rusted from the rain. His chair was made of wooden slabs glued with resin. It smelled like a poppy. A swirl of cold air was moving from side to side of the road. The coldest night in the year was now history remodeled. A shiny blister of fungi grew on the side of the road, a monumental being, moving with the wind and procreating in humidity. The shadow man drops his marble cup. Shard after shard moves into the dark night, each almost stepping on their own motif, screeching and sparkling into the vague light. The street was changing, building after building. The narrow corridor was now complete. Where the glass windows were moments ago, now oil paintings reside. Macabre, lugubrious tints of colors painted 13 blood-stained paintings. He walks towards them and starts to look. There was a hound depicted in the first painting. Humongous, black, with a collar made out of finger bones. It was smiling, showing his front teeth, each of them with dried blood encased. In the background, a wooden farm dominated the hills. The windmill was spinning faster and faster with each second. A lightning bolt hits the fan and it falls into the middle of the house, breaking the ceiling. A second bolt retaliates and the house is now on fire. The dog was growling, viciously looking at the sky. Sitting on the clouds, the pale woman was crocheting something. From time to time, she accidentally hurts herself and blood drops fall from the sky, they turn to lightning. She looks at the shadow man and lounges towards him. But now the fire from the farm was extending rapidly, encompassing all the painting. The hound was smiling once again and nods its head. Ashes in the wind. The second one was glowing in a blue shade, chains were rattling inside the painting. He looks sober at a hanging stage, where two priests were holding a skinny man. His bones were almost outside of his body. They sing a chant, then one of them takes a hammer. He breaks his feet, making a yellow liquid reverse into the landscape. They hung the man, then cut his ribs, creating a vulture-like corpse. The ghostly woman touched the man, then threw a match into the yellow liquid. She smiles looking at the corpse, that now was set ablaze. The priests were burning in agony as he took flight with phoenix wings. Ashes in the wind. A throne was situated in the third, with ravens on each side. The left raven was blind, the right raven was deaf. The left raven had colored jewels adorning his wings, the right raven had pearls around the neck. One had a missing claw, the other had one more. One was smart and thinking of the homeland sky, the other was in heaven. The mundane kept one with a string, the other was set free but in an unseen cage. The blind raven moved frenetically on his side of the throne. The deaf one was sitting gravely still. The ghostly woman was sitting on the throne, with a missing left eye and the right ear cut. Her pearls were white and glamorously enchanting her stature, and jewels were shining on her arms. There was a pause and after that, a boulder breaks the room, a trebuchet was on the ground behind, with French flags flailing in the air. Ashes in the wind. A snake was looking straight to the shadow man from the fourth painting. Deadly allure, sinful creed, bloody sensations were boiling in the momentum. Their eyes were fixated on each other as drums were beating in a tribal song. They were connected in a dark way. A royal cobra was thinking him. With earthly scales and golden stripes, a red eye shape was on his back. The snake was moving his tongue in a letter Z shape, singing its motherly song. A ghostly touch was petting him, stroking him gently with care and lust. It was a hungry look the woman had. Her pale face showing a sign of regret. She takes a knife and swiftly cuts the cobra's neck, venom spilling on the ground. She takes a match and lights the shadow man's cigarette, then throws it on the ground. Ashes in the wind. A cracked wall was shown in the next painting. Exposed in the daylight of an early London, with hanged cats and piles of rubbish in each corner. The shadow man was hearing a hum, it was coming right from the fissure. He tries to listen closely, but the wall collapsed. A skeleton was hidden there, resting in the concrete as in the time he was alive. A rat jumped right from his eye socket, escaping from the picture alas. A cat was running circles inside the cracked wall. The snow-pale woman was holding a thick wax candle, looking in a slimy chest. With each movement she made, the skeleton repeated faster. She started dancing like an imp. The skeleton reprised. He hits the candle, breaking down, entwined. Ashes in the wind. Flaming swords of purple with grind were centered on the sixth. The shadow man bows with grace before them. He looks at their style and shiny steel. One was misted by blood, another was clean but spots of rust started to appear. The old blacksmith appears in the background, forging another one. He takes his hand and plunges it directly into the boiling steel. The blacksmith drinks the melted liquid and smoke was coming out of him. A ghostly hand then touched his head, the other sword stopped flaming. He starts to choke, then puts his fingers in his mouth. A sword came out, burning like the evening sun. He puts it down on his wooden table. Ashes in the wind. The 7 deadly sins were scattered into the next painting. Pride was sitting in the upper center drinking mead from a dragon horn. Greed was sitting on 3 chairs, with 3 glasses in his hands, drinking 3 sips at once. A blood-colored liquid was dripping on Wrath's face, making her jump and break the only window in the room. The coldest mist entered the room, making lust moan from the ghostly touch on her lower spine. Envy was sad, thirsty, but so glad, a poisoner was he. He sobs and cries, he was so sad, that even gluttony that was drinking his tears and eating his soul started to feel bad for a moment and stops. Gluttony felt bad as he had stepped on something rot, something fleshy and bony. But he really did, but Sloth did not care, he was okay with it, as he recalled. A little bit they started to bloat, then green they were, then all felt down. The snow-white woman came around and kissed Envy with deadly lips, and like the others, he felt down. She takes some matches, then came light. Ashes in the wind. There was a being he didn't know. Or the man did not remember anymore. It was a round being without skin, little blue veins were making their way on this boneless body. It was so fleshy, and as for touch, it felt like guts and steam come out along with zips that were popping out the moment you placed a finger. The shadow man saw skeleton wings residing on the being's back. 3 pairs of wings, 2 pigeons' legs in front, a toothless mouth in the center, and eyes appeared when you closed yours. The being started to fly vehemently in the red sky, creating shapes of blem mice and turquoise fungi. It was moved by a wand. Instrument held by a ghostly white woman, with eyes so bright that no other face characteristic could be seen. She makes a sign, then the being starts to fall from the sky. A giant mushroom cloud appeared. Ashes in the wind. 9 stars, 9 moons, 9 planets dancing in a triangle of dust. Arcturus, Orion, and Pleiades were sipping milk in plain sight. They all formed a letter Z shape on the wall. The shadow man then draws with his hand in the air, almost like a half-moon sign. The shape then moved. A cyclone, dust of earthly life, a madness kiss of impurity and fight. A letter X, then Y, then gone. Orion was glowing bright, whitely, brighter even than the sun. The ghostly woman was riding it, creating disbalance, and darkness was fading fast away. She crashed into all around, black holes ripping off the sky. With a hand of power, she fetches out a long dead sun that brought out primordial pain. Then everything went white. Ashes in the wind. The man stayed still, he wanted to say something but then stops right before. He moves to the 10th painting, with a hand on the brick-made exterior wall of an old fisherman's house. The corridor was almost coming to an end and space was also dimming out. He almost crawled to the next painting. He looks baffled. A crowd was looking straight at him from behind the ebony frames, they looked angry and with a move. They all raised pitchforks and fire sticks with arrowheads at the other end. A dense fog rose and red eyes glamoured in the distance. Bats were floating high in the sky in circles. Trees were arching their branches like a ballerina. A hum dominated the atmosphere. It started as in a low tone, but now is deafening the people present there. They all start screaming, but no sound was heard from them. The hum grew louder. Their ears were bleeding, their eyes were popping. A ghost-like woman was humming in the background. She stops and looks perplexed at her pair of matches. And so, with grace, the blood was boiling once again. Ashes in the wind. A sailor bust, made out of marble, with stitched scars all over his face, was portrayed on the 11th painting. His face looked proud. His pupils were inexistent. A beard and mustache were once sculpted, but now a hammer did its job, a merely chiseled work. Green ooze was dripping from his eyes, traversing his curly nose up into the downstream of the bloody river that was now formed on his chest. The bust now cracked, little by little pieces of hair and scorched skin appeared as the content encased in marble. Two ghostly hands with a jug made out of clay were pouring now what looked like water on the head of the marbled man. He started screaming out in pain, the name of the usurper. The bust then cracked out in flames, scattering the remains. Ashes in the wind. The morning sun, alas we meet, with chorus of the raven. I am the meek, the saint, the bleach, alongside with the craven. I waited for you in 12th the paint, the memory escaping. Your darkness being please be kind, the memory is shaping. An unrecognizable face, glowing green, with an odor of bone meal was sitting in an old pendulum clock. His voice was grave with tones of sorrow. His face was braided by ages. He was starting to go bald. The clock was ticking, but nothing moved. It showed 12, and always 12. I rarely go out of touch, continues the face, revealing that he has no body. My manners may be lacking. The woman found us once again. Logs are stained and cracking. Ashes in the wind. 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 The voice stopped. The shadow man looked back at all the frames now sitting empty on the corridor. The 13th one was now in front, showing the painting of a street. The place was now compressed. He takes a moment, then he proceeds right through the remaining painting that was closing the corridor shut. Ashes in the wind.